Today we're talking about SAT as you all know it. This session is for the beginners, for those of you who probably have no idea or who have less or little idea of what exactly SAT is, when is the best time to take it, and how is it useful for you in your college applications. That's what we would, discuss today. So those of you who have elder siblings or elder cousins, you might have heard it from your seniors that SAT is going digital this year. In fact, we already have, some of our students have taken digital SAT since March, and now you would be taking the digital SAT. It is going to be very different from, from the paper-based SAT, which was in practice in the past 6 or 7 years since 2016. So today we'll be exploring what exactly is on the digital SAT and how is it better than the paper-based SAT, and what are the new challenges that we are now facing in the digital SAT. Besides, we will talk about how SAT is going to be useful in your universities. So first of all, I guess most of you would already know that SAT is an entrance test for US universities. This, in fact, is the first filter in most of the colleges on your profile. That score is, in fact, more important than your A-levels grades, but obviously, most of you will, in fact, have your admission offer in hands even before you get, to sit in your A-levels exams. Most of you will have your offers anywhere from January to May of your A2. So that's even before your A-levels exam. So your admissions will, in fact, be based upon academically on your O-levels grades and your SAT score. These are the two academic, indicators that the US universities or colleges will be using to assess you. So naturally, SAT becomes very, very important. It, in fact, is again very important if there's something lacking in your O-levels grades. The SAT score then goes on to show that you're improving, that you're working on your academics. And if there is a B or a C in your transcript, especially in English or math, then a higher SAT score indicates that you've worked on it and that you're doing better in maths now. Again, because SAT English and SAT Math test you on English for specific purposes and math for specific purposes. We'll talk about that, what exactly I mean when I say that it is English for specific purposes and this is math for specific purposes. So a higher score in SAT English or SAT Math, indicates your readiness for college. So anyway, we'll just jump back onto why and how SAT is more important. Let's just explore what exactly is on the digital SAT and what should you expect inside the exam. So the SAT is, scored on a 1600 scale. So your score will come out of 1600. The maximum you can score is 1600. If you just leave it blank, you will score a 400. So it's not a 0 that you score. You basically score anywhere from 400 to 1600. In fact, because SAT is divided into two sections, English and math. So English is out of 800, math is again out of 800. You score anywhere from 200 to 800 in each section. Who's just leaving the entire section blank or somebody who's doing all questions incorrect will just get, the 200. Anyway, so now it is, at the moment, it is being administered in test centers in Pakistan, but it will also be administered in schools. So again, free practice is available on Khan Academy and on the College Board's own website. But obviously, College Board's own website does not really host any practice material. We'll just talk about this towards the end of the session, that, that they have these download links for apps that you could use to practice SAT online. Again, if any one of you need any kind of accommodations in terms of time that they need, or if somebody is not able to take tests on their computer, they'll be, allowed to take tests on paper. Again, for your medical report, would you need any kind of accommodation? And as we've said, and as I've said, before, that SAT English and SAT Math is not the kind of math that you've seen in your O-levels or the kind of English that you've seen in your O-levels. It's different. It is testing you on a totally different thing. SAT Math is testing on, for example, math for specific purposes. For example, if you'll be reading out papers, articles in your universities, would you be able to interpret them, the kind of math that's there? Will you be able to understand what an equation is telling you? That's the kind of knowledge that they would be testing in SAT. Again, if your concepts are fine, if your O-level math concepts are fine, you'll be able to do fine in your SAT Math. Again, English, O-levels English and SAT English are very different. You sort of will feel there's a steep jump in the difficulty level and the kind of English reading and English writing rigor that's expected in SAT English. So let's see what has really changed in digital SAT now. Obviously, as you can expect, you do not have access to papers or pencils, or you do not have to again bubble any MCQs just like you do in O-levels. It's all digital. You just put in your answers on the screen. I'll show you the interface, how the interface now looks like. Before this, the SAT used to be at least 3 hours long. It is now approximately 2 hours, a little more than 2 hours, in fact. You can take the test on a computer or tablet. Again, this could be your computer, your device, or you could, ask the testing center to provide you a device. So we'll now see how you will in fact be asked to sort of install a software inside in your computer or your tablet before going to your test center, and that you could use your own computer or your own tablet to take the test. And now you will obviously not be carrying your own scientific calculator to the test center. A built-in calculator will be available inside the application to help you do any kind of calculations that you would now need. So let's now see what exactly is changing in the reading and writing section. Initially, for English reading and English writing, we used to have separate sections. Now there's a single section for English. And now what has really changed for good, and what is in fact into our own advantage, into the advantage of Pakistani students, is that we now have shorter passages instead of longer passages. And initially we used to have longer passages, which would require you to, for example, read anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes and then answer questions. Now you would have very short passages, which would take approximately 30 to 45 seconds to read, and then there'll be one question associated with every passage. Initially, we used to have longer passages, just like O-levels English, and then multiple questions around that passage. So now you just have a single question on each English passage. Now, in that section, what's changing for good is that the calculator is allowed throughout. Initially, we used to have 2 sections in math, section 3 and section 4, where in section 3, we were not allowed to use calculator to solve questions. But in section 4, we were allowed to use calculator. Now you would have access to calculator throughout. Now, in fact, you will also have access to a graphing calculator to help you through the exam. Obviously, because all of you, especially all of you who've gone through O-levels or IGCSE, you're not familiar with graphing calculators and their interface before. Those of you who've sort of taken IB MYP or the American high school, you would be more familiar with the graphing calculators. What's also changing for good is that the length of word problems is shortening. Initially, we used to have long stories and then a shorter question at the end to ask. Now the average length of these questions will shorten, which is for good. What is now very important and what really makes digital SAT different from all other exams that you may have experienced in the past is that it now is adaptive. What it means by adaptive is that most of you will be seeing a similar module one. Each section, English section and then math section, will have two modules. The first section, most of you will see similar, where you'll have a mix of easy, medium, and hard questions. I mean, based on different areas of math, we'll see what different areas of math you'll be tested on. Based on how you've performed in the first module, you will see questions in the second module. Naturally, if you've not done well in the harder level questions in module one, in module two, you will not see harder level questions. You will at max see medium level questions in module two. They'll see if you've done very well in algebra in module one, you will see harder questions on algebra in module two. But for example, if you've not done well in geometry in module one, you will see easier questions in geometry in module two. Now, some of you might be thinking that what if we intentionally do not do well in module one so that we see easier questions in module two? That would obviously not be of use, because if you do not do well in module one, there'll be a score ceiling on you in module two. So just because you're only seeing medium level questions and no harder questions, that means now you will only be sort of hitting a maximum score of, for example, 700 out of 800, and going beyond 700 will not be possible, for example, just because you did not see any harder questions in module two, because you were not able to do well in hard questions in module one. So module two will exactly adapt based upon how you performed in module one. Because these sections are now, adaptive, we have far less questions in SAT now. Initially, the pool of questions was far bigger. Initially, we used to have, 58 questions in SAT math and a lot more questions in SAT English. Now you have far less questions, because with far less questions, just because of the module being adaptive, they can ensure and they can test how well you are doing in each area of math. Let's just quickly take a glance at these at the specification of the test that you would now see. As we've seen, that the test is going to be module adaptive. The length is going to be far shorter. In maths, you will only see 22 questions in each section. 22 questions in each module, So 22 plus 22 will make 44 questions in total in math. And again, 27 plus 27 questions in English. So in total, you would see 54 questions in English and 44 questions in math. English would be 64 minutes and math would be 70 minutes. Again, they're divided into two modules of 35 plus 35 minutes, and English would be divided into two modules of 32 and 32 minutes. As you see, it says it has 25 operational questions and 2 pre-test questions. What it basically means is that you would not know. There'll be 2 questions out of the 27 questions that you would not be marked on. So just SAT, the College Board just sort of includes those questions to gather data on those questions, how students should possibly perform in the future tests if those questions were added. But on those 2 questions, you would actually not be tested, so you will not have to worry about. But you will not know which were those 2 questions that you're not being graded on. Similarly, you will have 2 pre-test questions in each math module as well.